cool season and the warm season grasses. Now this is important to know because if you have both in your yard, you can have grasses that are at their zenith all year long. So as we go through, I'll point out, I have the cool season grasses up here. They're the ones that like the temperatures under 75 degrees. So they do a lot of their growing in the winter, look great in February with your first spring bulbs. And they're really great with spring bulbs, especially this little azula, because it's evergreen and the bulbs come up.
Can you lift them up?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Please, thank you.
Sure. The bulbs come up around it, and as the bulb foliage, yeah, my sister, thank you. As the bulb foliage dies down and turns yellow, then it's hidden by this particular foliage. So that's a really nice thing about the cool season grasses. Warm season grasses are the ones that do really well when it's hot. They love the heat. So they get their growth in July, August, September, and they have the later blooms, like the miscanthus and the pennisetum and the panicums all bloom in the fall. And they're the ones that have the really great seed heads all winter long. And so when you cut them down in March or late February, whenever you see the new green growth, it's almost a shame because they're still absolutely beautiful, still waving in the breeze. The next category is whether or not they're clumping or running. Now, you probably all had an experience with a running grass and thought, well, like ornamental grasses, especially the ribbon grass. They're so beautiful, but they just really take over. So I don't raise any grasses that are really invasive, but I do raise some that spread ever so slowly by underground rhizome. A good example of that would be the Carex ice dance. It's a wonderful grass. It is so tough. It will take full sun, full shade, water, no water, and it looks the same year round. It's just an amazingly tough grass. But it does form a mat, so if you want a mat forming like under rhododendrons or whatever, so no weeds come through, that's a really good choice.
Where is it? Is it here?
No, I don't have ice dance here, but I do have gold band, which if you don't want the running qualities of ice dance, this is a clumper. And this is what it looks like year round. It's just an amazingly tough grass that has the variegation, so it shows up well in the shade. So clumpers and runners, most of what we do have are the clumpers, but a few runners that you'll recognize are the black mondo grass and the Japanese blood grass and ice dance. Those are basically the three that I have. And then the other category is whether or not they're evergreen or deciduous. Evergreen means that they stay looking that way year round. This is a good example, and also the blue oak grass is a good example. It keeps this color year round, so it's just a wonderful grass to have in your yard. The deciduous ones are basically the warm season grasses are mostly all deciduous, and they turn tan when it freezes. That's how you can tell whether it's deciduous or not. If it turns tan, it's deciduous. And so we'll talk more about the care and maintenance a little bit later about those. And then there's the annual and the perennial. And most everything that I raise is perennial because people like them to come back. The one exception is this new cultivar. It's a Pennisetum rubrum, but it's called Fireworks, and it has a much redder foliage, almost a striated foliage on it. And again, it's not hardy. You know, people don't tell you that when you buy them, but the really great thing to know about this is it makes a great house plant. So if you buy this, put it out on the porch with your pumpkins, it looks fabulous, then bring it inside. The only thing you have to remember is to cut off the inflorescence before they shatter. But they'll grow and they'll bloom all winter long. And in any window, I've tried it in a north window and it worked just fine. It's the warmth that they need. Grows all winter, and then you can have a much bigger plant in the spring. So a good thing to know about Pennisetum rubrum because everybody loves them. Okay, so the interesting thing about grasses is I talked about that they were very diverse. Well, for every particular garden situation, there's a grass that will grow there, which is pretty hard to believe, but they grow on almost every continent too, so they're pretty tough and hardy. The claim to fame, one of the claims to fame of the grasses is that they are very low maintenance. So we'll talk about maintenance later, but basically cutting them down if they're deciduous is all you do to them. You don't fertilize them. You just cut them off and let them come back up. They're very drought tolerant. I will say that most living plants do like water. So especially that first year when you plant them, you want to water them very well. That will get the roots going really deep. And the following year, they'll be much more drought tolerant if you water them really well the first year. And I really recommend drip irrigation on grasses. If you have overhead sprinklers, it tends to beat the foliage and that sort of thing. So drip irrigation just has the right amount of water right to the roots and doesn't waste water, but it still meets the requirements of the green plants. Now, also they're very adaptable to many soil types. They will grow really well in clay soil, sandy soil, perfect soil. The secret to remember for most of them is that they need good drainage. So if you have clay soil, what I recommend is that you just make a little berm, a little mound. When you dig the hole, put a little bit of quarter tin in the bottom of the hole, and that will allow for the drainage of the roots, and that will solve a lot of the problems for the grasses. When we did our display garden, about 6 years ago, we decided to put in a display garden so you could actually see what the grasses looked like and when they were full grown and what their structure was like and that sort of thing. And so when we built those raised beds, we used quarter tin compost and then the soil that was native to that area. And it's worked out so well. They've thrived in that particular situation. Yes?
What is quarter tin?
Quarter tin is a gravel that doesn't have the minus in it, so it doesn't pack down as hard as the quarter tin minus. It's used in road building, actually.
Okay, I got you.
So you can call around, you can find it. Not everybody that carries rock does carry quarter tin, but we love it. We use it for mulch.
Eugene Sand and Gravel has it.
Oh, good. Thanks, Denise. Okay, like I said, you don't need fertilizer. In fact, don't put fertilizer on them because extra nitrogen tends to make them floppy. So if you have some floppy grasses, that could be the case. You're just loving them too much. Also, the less water you give them, the less height they'll have. So if you have problems with flopping, that could help. And another thing I just learned not too long ago is that if you have a miscanthus that is a little on the floppy side, you can cut it off about halfway in the first part of July or middle July, and that will make all of the stems so much stronger that they won't tend to flop later in the year. I tried that and it really worked. They don't get as tall as they would ordinarily, but they're very strong.
So when you say cut them off, you mean just
just
part way?
Yeah, just half. Yeah. And you do it when they're maybe about this tall, and you just cut off half. They just come back beautifully and really strong. Also, they're good cover for the birds and for other little animals. In our display garden, we have a family of quail, and they're so cute, and they just love darting in and out of the grasses. So they also eat some of the grass seeds, so they're very good. Please don't cut them off, in the fall. So many people, I notice especially around commercial construction, they want everything to be neat and tidy. So they cut off all their grasses like about now, and they lose all that wonderful winter interest. So, we'll talk about that later, but leave your grasses up all winter, you'll love it. And I understand you have a lot of deer in this area. So, no, that deer don't eat ornamental grasses. Now, I won't say that absolutely because I guess it would depend on how hungry the deer are. But we have no problem with them eating our ornamental grasses at all. So that's a real plus.